Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our third live event of the year for the Financial Policy Council. Let me tell you, my name, by the way, is Ziad Abdelnour, for those who don't know me. I'm the founder and chairman of the Financial Policy Council, and I'm the president and CEO of Blackhawk Partners. I'm sure there are some new people here who never heard our spiel, and others who know us and have been attending our events for years. So let me tell you first what we are here. We're a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We've been in business for 12 years. We have 300,000 followers on social media. We have 72 corporate sponsors. We have a board of 9 people and a Project Liberty team of around 35 people. We're growing by leaps and bounds. And we're here to say things that are not said, do things that are not done. We're here to rock the fucking boat, and even more than that, break it and build a new one. The state of the economy is total shambles. Capitalism is on the siege. We have all the wrong people in power. So we have a long task ahead of us. And it's not going to happen by words. A lot of people come, attend our events, write blogs, and they do shit. It's not going to happen by words. It's going to happen by acting. What are you doing about it? Ask yourself, what are you doing every day about the state of the economy? About your well-being, about wealth creation, about this and that. Very few people are doing anything. In fact, they are very intimidated. They are afraid of being canceled. They can't say anything. They're paralyzed. And that's unfortunately what's happening. I remember when I came to this country like 30 years ago as a legal immigrant, the sky was the limit. Reagan was in power, Wall Street was booming, the Dow Jones was at 800, you could dream and do whatever you want. Everything was possible. And I did everything I dreamt of, beyond my expectations. Today, you cannot do that anymore. Because of the people in power, today we have to be thankful that you have a roof on top of your head, that you have a fucking idiot ruling this country. Yeah, I call it like it is. I don't care. This is video, I don't care. This is how it is. It's a fact. And you can't do shit. You are barely surviving at your job. The regulators are all over you. Tax people are over you. So, what do? Are you going to roll over and say, okay, thank God I'm still alive? Or are you going to do something about it? This is a call for action. If you don't want to be involved in our organization, back us in what we're doing, sponsor events like us, be very noisy about it, get the hell out of here. I don't need you. We're not here to give and speak and talk and make you feel good. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here so that you make a shitload of money and fuck you money, because it's all about money and power. And anybody who tells you different is in La La Land. La La Land. So you want to get money, power, influence, and make a difference, or you want to stay as a wimp listening to other people? It's your choice. It is your choice. We're rolling the punches here. It's very important for you to understand this and what we stand for before any panel or any conference. This panel is about cybersecurity, yes, because it's part of the big chess game. We're here to have you make money, preserve wealth, defend yourself from all the losers out there. And this is part of the cog. These guys are the experts. Raza, Omar, Sabek, Barry, Monies, Natalia. I will let them speak a bit about themselves, their background, each of them before. Every single thing we do is well calculated and has a reason. We don't do conferences and events for doing events. A lot of non-profit idiots out there who do that. None of the non-profits invite panel to discuss with the audience their needs and their challenges. You have an idiot academic from this liberal, stupid college called Harvard University who talks and pontificates to people, and he doesn't let anybody speak. It's like he's the Messiah. He's God. He's Klaus Schwab. He's World Economic Forum. He's Bill Gates. Everybody pontificates and bends to them to listen to these idiots. Yeah, you can clap. Don't worry. We are fucking activists. If you're not an activist willing to speak like, can you imagine if we have 1,000 people who speak like me out there? We will terrorize them. We will terrorize the fucking terrorists. And that's how it should be. This is how revolutions are won. This is how you get back your country. This is how you get back your freedom. This is how you get back capitalism. It's all about capitalism. It's all about money, power, and capitalism. All the rest is for the idiots. It doesn't mean shit. You're not going to, oh, did I make you feel bad? Okay, cry. I want you to cry if I make you feel bad. Cry and cry and keep crying. If you don't have this hunger, this passion, this anger in you, you will never be wealthy. Never. You'll always be happy with your status quo. You make your fucking $200,000 a year, which can be done in a day. And always, I'm happy, thank you, God. God has nothing to do with it. Religion has nothing to do with it. It's all in your hands. For all the religious people, whether you're Muslim, Christian, or Jew. Religion has nothing to do with it. So please wake the fuck up. This is not an organization. This is a movement. This is a movement of radical capitalists. And I say it. Unfortunately, I've been saying this to some people and they still don't get it. So enough is enough. Anyway, I don't think I need to elaborate more. That's what the Financial Policy Council is about. And we're going to grow and become dangerous whether with or without you. So you better jump on the bandwagon. You're not doing us a favor by coming to us. We're doing you a favor by accepting you. And by empowering you, and by inspiring you, and by making a difference. So talking about cybersecurity, which is a very, very important topic today. Everybody's stealing, ransomware, hacking, disrupting. So I'd like to go first about, if each one of the panelists could talk a bit about his background, from Naj to Omar to Barry to Natalia, and then we can start the questions. This is the format. I have questions as a moderator to the panelists, which I will ask them. They will address the questions. Then I'll leave it up to you, the audience, to ask them any questions you want. So it's very interactive. I'm not here pontificating, knowing that. It's very interactive. There's no stupid question. There's no dumb question. There's no controversial question. The more controversial, the better. You're here to grill them and get their expertise. Get it. You're not here to make them feel good. You're here to grill them, ask the very difficult question. And they are here. They are tough people, smart people who can address this. I will do the same. So we can start with Barry.
Sure. So my name is Barry Monet, and most importantly, I'm very honored to be on the board of directors of the Financial Policy Council for the past 8 years. I've survived our friend Ziad, and we've worked very closely together in really moving this vision forward. When I'm not thinking or dreaming about the Financial Policy Council, I'm the CEO of a 26-year-old IT firm that provides computer network support for small to medium companies, mostly financial, legal, medical, real estate companies, with a focus on communication and security. In the past, I've been invited to Congress to testify on Homeland Security for small, medium companies, as well as the accompanied a previous governor in Connecticut to discuss security with international politicians and other people. Also been featured in many magazines and articles, and the focus is really protecting the public and making sure that as you build that wealth, it's protected.
Thank you, Barry.
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Omar Sabek. But before I start, I just want to, we just give that a round of applause. That was a beautiful introduction. That was really. So I'm a lifelong technologist. Currently, I run the support organization at a $16 billion enterprise company called Kaseya. We're focused on cybersecurity products. Small and medium businesses are primarily the market that we protect. My background is financial technology, so selling technology to banks, supporting that technology, trading floors to secure their assets, secure their environments was my key focus. Like I said, lifelong technologist, which means that from a very young age, I was probably more on the naughty side. So I have that experience in terms of how exploitable the networks are, which has informed me and enabled me to apply that knowledge to protecting small, medium, and enterprise businesses from attacks. And we'll talk more about that. Very excited to be here. I also have a deep knowledge in sovereign technologies that enable individuals to be sovereign individuals. Blockchain technologies, self-custody technologies, holding your keys is something that's critically important. We'll be talking more about that, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Ziad, for having me here.
Thank you, Omar. Naj?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Raza. I've been in the software IT world now for 19 years, and I've had a focus on business continuity, backup, disaster recovery, and cybersecurity exclusively for the past 13 years. I started and sold my cybersecurity company, which successfully exited about 4 years ago, and then I joined Kaseya, same company that Omar's from, over the past 3 years, and I head up product for them on our entire platform. And I've spoken around the globe on cybersecurity and business continuity disaster recovery. Thanks so much for having me.
Last but not least, Natalia.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. My name is Natalia Han, and I've been in the financial industry for almost 20 years. I'm the banker. And I've been with Bank of America for about a decade, learned everything from foundational level on what it is to run a bank from that perspective, and then credit unions. And I'm now happy at Mbank, which is a leading BaaS company that works with fintechs to provide payment rails for those brands that are looking to expand that to their end users. So now in BaaS. So excited to be here.
Natalia. Thank you. First, before we start, I'd like to thank Computronics, Barry Monies, and Mbank, Vladimir Lunigov, who unfortunately could not make it today because he has COVID-19. I hope he recovers quickly, for their sponsorship and support of this event. Thank you. So I have a few questions I'm going to run by you guys. Any one of you can answer the question. And you don't have each one of you to answer a question. It's up to you how comfortable you feel. And then I will leave it to the audience to ask you the questions they have. So the question I have for all of you, what are the common ways that companies are attacked and their data gets exploited these days? Any one of you can answer this.
So I'll start. So the biggest thing is awareness and training. Sure. The biggest thing is awareness and training and being cognizant of what's going on out there and the changes we see in the cybersecurity environment. So in terms of what you need to be aware of is obviously the different avenues that hackers can take in getting into your environment or getting access to your assets. So with that said, we can begin to dig deeper into what those various aspects are, including email and network attacks and all sorts of things. But I'll pass it on to the rest of the panel to add some color to it.
Yeah, no, that's a very high level way to approach it. There's really, if you think about like this from an attack vector perspective, there's really 3 major ways and a 4th minor way that businesses are attacked. They're either attacked because you have people in your environment, people in your business that are being phished, so they'll click on a bad link and let in malware or some other type of payload that's going to infect your network and reveal information that could lead to further attacks, or even that main attack can reveal information. The second way is your software is not up to date, right? So you have, the analogy I use, I was speaking to someone else today, it's like the proverbial, someone on 42nd Street checking all the car doors, trying to see, which one of those doors are open. This is someone that's launching an attack across all the assets that are open to the internet, trying to find outdated software that have security vulnerabilities that have been patched by those vendors. And the third way is, this is something that the way that's the least likely that you're going to be attacked is something called a 0 day. Okay, and a 0 day is really where we're seeing 0 days today is governments. The Israeli government has found 0 days. The U.S. government has found 0 days, and this is software vulnerabilities that are found in software. Think like Apple iOS that have yet been known to the public, have yet been known to those software providers, but are being exploited by intelligence agencies and other factions that are out there that have something to gain from those exploits. In those kind of cases, there's really nothing you can do to protect yourself except for just being aware that those are the kind of situations that or those are the kind of vulnerabilities that can occur. Thankfully, those are really, really rare. But those are really the main. I'm failing to recall the third one. That's the fourth one. That's super rare. I think you have a phishing attack. You have a outdated software vulnerability attack, and what's the third one?
Ransomware.
Ransomware.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah. And when it comes back to you,
I'll go to you, but I just want to touch on 0 days so you understand what it is. So in simple terms, it means it just came out. We don't even know about it. It just hit all of us, and nobody knows. So think of the first day COVID came out. Nobody knew anything about it, and people got hit, and we said, oh my God, what's going on? So that's kind of like what 0 day is. So you can't prevent that before you know it. There are things we can do, but that's what 0 day is. Go ahead, Naj.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add, totally agree with what both Barry and Omar said. To really distill it down to simple terms, right? The weakest link in the chain is usually the user, right? So that's what we see a lot of attacks from, targeted towards let's trick the user into clicking a link. That's either going to trick them into downloading what we were referring to as ransomware. And by show of hands, who's familiar with ransomware in the audience? Okay, good. So as you know, once ransomware gets on, they hold your data hostage, and then they say, pay us money in Bitcoin, and we'll give your data back. So that's one of the most common attacks that we've been seeing over the past 5-6 years. Then phishing attacks, of course, by tricking the user, stealing their credentials, getting into their Microsoft accounts. Or I was just speaking with a law firm the other day where an attorney had his entire trust fund wiped out because they got into his account. They were able to trick the admin staff into thinking that they had to wire out money, and they were watching them. So once it was a real estate attorney, once the bank funded the closing and said, here you go, come in and sign the paperwork, and then we'll release the money. That's when the hackers tricked the admin staff into sending it to a fake bank account, or it was a real bank account, but it was the hacker's bank account. So that's what phishing does there.
I can add a different angle to this question, which is on the consumer side. A lot of times individuals, like we hear from the rest of the panelists here, are being attacked. And it's unfortunate because most of the times it actually happens to be somebody that they know. And so have their information, know their passwords, know their social media. There's a lot out there nowadays. And so just wanted to bring in that angle that, a lot of times when it comes to fraud, it's unfortunately somebody that you know.
I just want to bring one more point to really bring this home. No matter what we do as technologists, no matter what we come out to fight the hackers, the biggest problem, and you've heard this, but I want to make sure you all understand this, has to do with you. And that's social engineering, it's called. The biggest problem we have in security are the users and the lack of knowledge of how to protect themselves. So that's what you'll see going forward. It won't be about are you using the latest software or the latest protection or different levels? It's all about you being trained and understanding that you need to take control of your own stuff and protect yourself by not doing the wrong things. And that's what this all is reflecting.
Yeah, just to add to that, that was the third. It's the social engineering, the spear phishing. A spear phishing attack is they're targeting you as an individual. They're finding vulnerabilities in you. They may know that you have assets. They have some level of intelligence on you, so they're targeting you. And really, like Barry just mentioned, the way to protect yourself is to be aware of that. And you should treat every communications that's coming into you as suspect before you validate it as something that is authenticated as being from the individual that you expect to receive it from. And
especially from your spouse.
But if you have this attitude of suspicion, then you're going to be skeptical, and you'll apply a little bit more judgment before you read an email, click a link, etc.
So what's the best way to avoid ransomware attacks? I get an attack every day. It goes into my spam. You give me this, you pay me this, I'll give you, I'll do this. I don't even respond. I never paid anything to anyone. I don't even respond. They go into my spam box, all of them. And the frequency is a lot, I totally disregard them. And sometimes I get text, fake text. They send text to Barry saying it's me regarding some shit, So is this the thing? Totally disregard it? Because it's pretty much based on the user, as you're saying, as Gary was saying. The user, how we have some people panic and they start calling people right and left. No, totally disregard it. Is that one of the best way to avoid ransomware attacks, or any other ways?
So let's do that. Let's dig a little deeper. Let's peel back the onions. So beyond what you need to do to be educated, again, we said that's number one, and we'll keep hitting that. Beyond that, there are standards that from the government, actually, which we keep this on, that have brought out, which are actually good, which is a kind of an overview of what is the minimal security you should have in your environment. And so let's talk about that a little, of the things you should have, minimum, beyond you protecting yourself. And I'm going to let you guys touch on this.
Yeah, so absolutely, you want to make sure that your software is up to date. You want to have a firewall in place. And if these concepts are foreign, or if they're if they're a little too technical, then you want to find trusted providers that can provide you these level of services. Barry is my trusted provider.
I just
of these
happen
services.
to be one of these.
Just happen to be sitting next to me too. The other thing is, going back to like what you're doing. Perfect. Let's go into your spam box. I never have a need to go into my spam box. Typically, nobody does.
Yeah.
If it's not in your spam box, who is it from? Is there a reason why this person should be contacting me?
But it's always on my in my spam box.
Yeah.
They never get it.
So you're automatically skeptical. Great practice for an individual. What if you have an organization? If any of you here are business leaders, and what are you doing to train and validate that your staff are practicing some of these skepticism techniques? So there is software that you can use in your company.
So train all your staff to react the same way.
What it will do is it will simulate attacks, spear phishing attacks and regular phishing attacks. The difference is a spear phishing attack is targeted to an individual. I know I'm going to present myself like you know me, to lower your suspicion, raise your confidence so that I can attack you. That spear phishing attack needs to be trained on how to identify it and how to report it. Same thing with a phishing attack.
Yeah, and to add to what Barry was saying, so the standard is defined by the government. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, they rolled out a framework called CSF, Cybersecurity Framework. It has 5 pillars to it: protect, detect, identify, respond, recover. That's the technical stuff. To really break it down, it comes down to, you want to have defense in depth, as they refer to it. You want to have software that's going to protect you. You want to have training that you can educate the users what to click on, what not to click on. And ultimately, what's your last line of defense? Backup. Because you can do everything that you want in the world, but somehow you still have to account for something that might slip through. So that's where your backup and disaster recovery strategy is critical. But having a backup isn't enough. You have to actually test it. You have to do simulations in a controlled environment when nothing has gone wrong yet. how do we know how long it'll take us to recover if the worst thing happens to us tomorrow?
And I think I could add that the info security policies that you build for your businesses is key to make sure that they really are tailored around your environment and your demographics.
I do want to bring up, there's one thing you can all do immediately for the majority of all your online existence, all your banking, all everything else. And it's crazy that most companies don't do this, or even individuals, and it's called 2FA, or multi-factor authentication. And basically all that means is that your first authentication, you have a username, and you got a password. That's your first authentication. Second level of authentication is where you're using some other means to confirm who you are, to get into your bank, to do these things. You all must have used it. Breaking the table. So that's the simplest thing, and it's mostly free on like your emails, and if you're using Office 365, but you must enable 2FA on everything you do. If that's the only thing you remember tonight, that's the first thing you can do. Backup is the other side of the product or solution. Once you get hacked, even though we have all these things in place, backup will bring you back. But to stop majority of the hackers, implement 2FA for your personal and your business. And if you need help in understanding that, happy to help you.
How many of you have 2FA enabled on your account? Or how many of you have heard of 2FA? That's actually what I just asked.
What?
2FA.
Two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. And how many of you haven't? Okay, that's really, yeah. So if there's anything you're going to go home with tonight and you're going to do as Barry said, everything that's important to you that you're accessing online, Google or search their knowledge bases on how to enable 2FA and do it. I have an app that gives me, what it's going to do when you enable it is it's going to ask you for your username and your password, like it typically does, but then it's going to ask you for a third item, and that's a 5 or 6 digit code. And that 5 or 6 digit code is going to be provided by an application. There's several applications that provide this, and would you recommend any applications that provide?
I mean, there's
Authy.
There's even, Google has one.
Google
Authenticator, which,
So you could download it to your phone, and it will give you a 6 digit code. He's going to show you what it looks like.
I mean, I know it's not ideal, but basically these are different accounts I have, and each one has a code, and it refreshes every 30 seconds. Many of you might remember in the old days, the geeks walked around with this. They used a little, like a beeper.
Secure IDs.
Yes, and it would change so they can get into their environment. We can use this for everything we do. If you do this, you're 90% of the way there with security.
Yeah, that and also don't reuse the same password. I know it's tempting. I'm guilty of it, but I'll tell you what happens is on the dark web, some other company gets hacked, right? Target, we saw it, Home Depot. Your usernames, your passwords get leaked. Hackers realize that we're human. We don't want to have to remember 10, 12, 15, 50 different passwords. So they'll just use an automatic program to try logging into all the sites out there with that same username and password. And that's usually when they get hit. Funny enough, actually, my cousin, this happened with him, and they got into his Subway account, like Subway, the sandwich shop, all right? And somebody ordered $150 worth of food on it, right? So they're trying everything that they can out there.
I think on the individual side, I think there's some apps too out there that are actually pretty helpful. LastPass, Dashlane. Yeah, so I mean, it really helps. I mean, I don't know if you're anything like me, but that can be pretty daunting, trying to remember all of these different sites that you're, now signing up for because of a coupon code that they're going to give you if you're like me, or, you're just trying to make your shopping experience easier for you on next time, so you save your card information on there. So, what the gentlemen are saying here is absolutely true. And you definitely have to look for ways to make it unique in every scenario and every account that you're using.
Just want to ask, does anybody use password managers? Okay. So just again, to break it down to make sure everybody understands, it's a program that will create passwords for you. So every site you go to, it will remember the password for you and create different passwords. And it takes care of it for you so you don't have to think about it. So 2FA and password management are the two things you can go home and do immediately. And there actually will be a blog coming out with the FBC to go over these things, and we'll all contribute to it.
Absolutely. And if you have
for no cost, you guys can do this, right?
I'm in. If you have a MacBook, Safari includes it as part of its just core feature set, so you can enable it like that. That's there's also you mentioned LastPass. There's one password. There's Dashlane. Do your research. Look for local decryption. That's important. You don't want anything. You don't want decryption to happen in the cloud. It's a nuance, but it's actually important when you're assessing, these tools.
Very helpful, very insightful. Thank you very much. So, what do you do when disaster strikes? This is like total disaster. Number one, you stay calm.
Absolutely stay calm. So I think when companies unfortunately have these events, or even individuals, it's important to have a plan ahead of time. So in companies, we'll have business continuity plans, right? And we'll tailor them around our environments. We'll make sure that, again, with our InfoSec teams, our IT teams, we're aware of what we have available to us to then react quickly. So I think planning for communications to make the attack more tolerable is important, especially if you have your end users that are counting on you to provide this information timely. And so creating templates, creating those communication plans that are already set for any type of different scenarios that can happen. It could be, a trigger happens and it'll trigger a code red. So you already know that your internal team members know exactly what to do in that instance. And our communication teams are out there providing information to our customer base that is calm, that doesn't spread fear, that provides what to do procedurally. So that it's easy for them to take the 1, 2, 3 steps to avoid anything happening to their own accounts. And then more importantly, it's important to reiterate that we have it under control, right? Because we have all of these plans in place to be able to recover quickly. While we're communicating, then we have enough time internally to work with our internal teams to fix any concerns that we may see on the systems or any vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there, Natalia, right? It all starts with, you got to have the plan before the event actually happens, right? You got to have the plan, you got to simulate this. And the key components as part of it is there's a big IT component, but while the IT guys are doing their job, exactly like you mentioned, Natalia, what can everybody else do? What can you do from an operations perspective? Communications is super important. Also, for those that have cyber liability insurance, many people get nervous and they don't want to reach out to their insurance providers. That's the biggest mistake. The first thing that you want to do is you do want to start reaching out there because you have this policy. They're not going to be punitive. They're on your side. They want to minimize it because if you do have to file a claim, they want to make sure that you don't pay out as much as they don't have to pay out as much as possible. So get help. There's a lot of resources there. And of course, if you have in-house IT, if you have an in-house IT department, reach out to some specialists. Like, for example, Barry and his company, there's many companies out there like that. They're there to partner up with you, and they've been through situations like this, and they can give you the right guidance.
There's nobody like us.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more with everything that was just said. A nice rubric to use is, we use this in our business. We talk about left of boom and right of boom. And boom is the event. Left of boom is all your planning and all your procedures that Natalia mentioned. And when the boom happens, you want your people not to think, you want them to act. So, having them in a position where they're empowered to take all the actions that Natalia mentioned is critically important. Assume that you're going to lose everything in the boom, okay? Because these booms, you don't know how big the boom is. You don't know what the level of attack is. So assume the worst. And by assuming the worst, you're naturally going to want to make sure that you have business continuity. And in order to enable business continuity, you need your data, right? So always having backups that are that have high integrity to them, which means the time that they were taken are recent. Ensuring that they are always available, that they're tested, that you're doing health checks on them is critically important. You want a solution that enables all of those kind of features. And you also want a war game, right? You want to run your team and you want to run your technology through, that boom cycle. And just to validate that everything that, when boom happens, that you will be prepared and you will be able to continue your business. And good vendors will support that by providing you with the support that you need to enable, the validation that your business will continue in those type of events. And there's also software, there's other things you can do. I'll let Barry hit on that.
So I know your question was about what do you do when this happens, but it's really all about planning, like it is in life. Something hits, you can't claim insurance if you didn't buy it in the first place. So that's why we're kind of really hitting on what you got to do before to be prepared for what happens after. I just want to touch on the backup or disaster recovery. So there's two levels. There's local backup and cloud. Definitely have cloud. Local is if you need to get back online or get your company running immediately, but always have cloud. Make sure your stuff is not backed up locally, not only backed up locally, but backed up in the cloud. And I want to touch on one other thing, which is extremely important, and that is antivirus and the way you have programs in place to stop bad stuff from coming in. And without getting too technical, there's 4 areas of antivirus in today's game out there that us as companies need to be aware of and provide you options as to what to use. There's antivirus, which I believe everybody heard of, and that's your first level, and that's based on a predefined definition of a virus. So think of people get the flu, and now there's flu shots that know exactly what the makeup of the flu is. So that's antivirus. Then there's next-gen antivirus, and it looks for variations of the original flu. So COVID came out, and it's a flu, but it's a little different. So you need something to look at that. The next level is actually called EDR, Endpoint Detection and Response. We've got crazy amount of acronyms. And basically, that's more of a detective looking at changes in behavioral and how the virus is acting. So it's watching for that and alerting. And the final stage is the superhero team. And that's called the SOC, or Security Operating Center. And that's a group of people that are sitting somewhere, like ADT has a team watching for alerts. So that's as technical as we'll get. So there are actually 4 levels in the industry now that you need to be aware of. How you choose the level depends on your business model, how important your data is, how your budget. Actually, that's what it comes down to. Security is based on how much you're going to spend and how much is what you're saving worth.
And sometimes regulatory requirements.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. That's the big thing now. One of the biggest things we see is the insurance companies coming in, compliance, regulatory, either commercial regulatory or insurance regulatory, requiring these things. So you will hear everything we've heard about on some sort of form or survey from your commercial carriers or your regulatory carriers.
So are you saying that assuming your infrastructure is in cloud, public cloud, like Azure, AWS, etc., am I really fully protected against cyber threats?
I would say you are very, very much protected, but not fully.
Okay, so like what, 90%?
So let's say Microsoft Office 365.
Yeah.
They invest significant resources into penetration testing, looking for attack vectors, analyzing those attack vectors, and they do a very good job. Google, same thing. Apple, same thing, right? These are companies that
good. So
they're very well. Yeah. So just being on those kind of platforms, you're at the top of your game, but it's not fully protecting you. But
there's nothing.
I don't want to make anyone paranoid here,
but
like you can have a situation where an employee does something malicious in your Office 365 Teams, like your Teams or your SharePoint or your Outlook. And so you need to protect yourself from, or you may want to consider protecting yourself from those kinds of situations. So backing up the Office 365, may be something that you want to look at, right? There's other, I don't want to steal.
Go for it.
Obviously two-factor authentication, right? The phishing attacks, like we got to. You will be very much protected if you're running back in the day before these cloud services, you had to run on-prem servers, right? And you had Exchange, and you really there was no cloud. So you were running these servers in your environment, and it was your responsibility to patch them. All of those requirements go away, but what remains is patching all the systems that are accessing the cloud, because those can potentially, if they're not being taken care of, become attack vectors that could, give attackers access to your cloud environment. So you need to protect those.
Yeah, and Ziad, I think Microsoft answers your question for you, and everybody can go home and Google this. But if you look at Section 6B of their end user license agreement, it literally says, we are not responsible for your data.
That's true.
So they say you should use a third-party service to back up your Office 365 environment, your email, all your files in SharePoint. If anything happens, we're not liable. So while they invest in all the defenses to prevent some hacker from getting into Microsoft, what they don't account for is if somebody, the user, the weakest link, their information gets compromised. The hacker then uses that, logs in to Microsoft. They don't know. They think that, hey, somebody's logging in perfectly normally like they do. So that's where it becomes dangerous. And to come back to your point, Barry, that's one of the things, not to get too technical, but that's one of the things that a security operations center does. So for example, with our company, we have a security operations center, and they monitor, and they've caught things like Omar was in New York City and he logged off at 6:30 p.m. And then somebody logged on with Omar's account at 8:45 p.m. from the Philippines. There's no way Omar could have traveled to the Philippines. This is a problem. So that's where you start to get that defense in depth, where you want your backups and you want that fourth level, that superhero team of the Security Operations Center to watch for things like that. And it all comes back to the user.
Okay, guys, I'd like to leave it up to the audience. I'm sure you have a lot of questions to ask the panelists and go from there. I start with Stan.
GPT, in terms of security, you know what you know today.
Could you repeat it?
I'll repeat it. You know what you know today about how to protect us, but with GPT and the advances of artificial intelligence, how sure can you be that this kind of protection will be there in the future, especially with some of these unscrupulous Russian hacking companies that are trying to penetrate our accounts?
So with all the knowledge up here and our expertise, we're screwed. Sorry.
Let's repeat the question.
So the question was with Chat GPT, which is the new AI that many of you read about or utilized, how do we remain protected going forward against privacy and all the other things that has the capabilities of doing? It's a game. If anybody ever saw War Games a million years ago, we're constantly fighting this. This is what we do day to day, all of us. We are the men in black and women in black, and we're basically fighting unknown forces that none of you are aware of, that we deal with day in and day out, in coming up with ways to automate that protection for everybody. So with Chat GPT, as it evolves and creates new things, we'll be there to counteract it. But no, I can't give you any guarantee that it'll be any better security in the future.
Okay, so you get an email, it's from a Nigerian prince, or it's somebody who's hijacked your thing and saw you doing something naughty. Okay, now, suppose they get you and you're really, really pissed and you have all the money in the world. Can you actually find the person who did that? I mean, if you had all the resources available on the commercial market, is it possible to find out who actually did that?
I encountered this situation 5 years ago from a guy in Ghana. It was a gold transaction. He told me to send him some money to be able to certify this. I don't want to do it at all. Then he's such a good salesman. He convinced me to do it. I sent him that. It was some good money, not a lot. I mean, $50,000. It's not chicken shit. Send him $50,000. He calls me. Tells me, oh, Ghana is not South Africa. It's all shacks. There's no street and avenue. Very difficult to find people. So he called me, told me, come and get your money, you fucking Yankee. That's exactly what happened, word by word. I told him, really? I told him, yeah. If I didn't know Lance, you know who Lance is, who has a team of experts, ex-CIA at FBI, he told me, just give me his email, his cell number, his everything, and I will take care of it. He has ways of doing it. I had no idea. I told him, what are you talking about? It's impossible. How can you find this guy? He told me, this is my job. It took him 3 days. I swear to God, he showed up at 3 a.m. in the morning at the place he was sleeping with his wife. 4 guys, SWAT team, all in black, tell him, hey, somebody wants to talk to you. He puts me on the phone with him. I swear to God, he puts me on the phone with him. I thought, okay, so you still want to play games? And because it was, you acted very quickly, but this costs a lot of money. I mean, because acted very quickly, he could recover 99% of the money because he didn't have the time to spend the money, that guy. He took the money. And then I learned that he did it with a lot of people in Congress, in Canada, in the US, etc. So I was not like the first one. I was one of the things, is that he fell on the wrong guy, because of lands, etc. So yes, it can be done, but not through the conventional ways, through very different ways with people with background in intelligence and security and stuff like that who know how to do that. So nothing is impossible, but it's not available for everybody to go and do something like that. But that was an experience I will never forget, I'm telling you.
Why don't we give you each very quickly a scenario or a real scenario or case study of a situation that happened that we took care of, so you get ideas of what we deal with, and hopefully it'll make you think before you do something or you see what's happening. And we'll do them quickly. So I'll give you one that Computronics experienced. We had a client, a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund, and they called us and said that there was a problem. Somebody stole their laptop. Somebody stole a laptop from the president of the company, multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. When we trace it down, and I'll keep it short, basically what happened is a guy walked into the office to the receptionist in a brown suit, said, "I'm here with UPS. I'm here to pick up a package from John." And she goes, "Oh, I'm not aware of it." "Well, can you go ask him? It has to go out." She got up, went to the back. When she went to the back, he grabbed the laptop on a desk that was actually not on the front desk. It was an office right there. He ran in and grabbed it and left. Gone. That's it. So they called us and said, "Our laptop's gone. What can we do?" It was the president's laptop. He's out to lunch. So what we did is, because we provide monitoring and management services, we basically, first of all, we called the FBI. And they came to our office. And we kind of said, "Watch this." We turned on the monitoring and management on the laptop. The guy opened the laptop. We turned on the camera. The guy was writing his resume on this is true story, on his laptop. And he's writing, and we have his picture, and we have his resume, his address, and everything. So the FBI goes right there and picks him up. So my point in telling you that, it comes back to, again, social engineering. People will try to trick you in any way possible, having nothing to do with technology. I'm the UPS guy. I'm just here to pick up a package. And they'll grab something. And then they have access. Happens all the time.
Unbelievable stories.
Yeah, and I'll actually add, because this hit close to home. So my mother-in-law, she's a widow, so she was on an online dating site 10 years ago, and she was talking with somebody for 6 months, and after 6 months, she realized that they weren't who they claimed to be. They were just trying to get her bank account information. They built a relationship with her. They said, "Hey, we're in trouble. Please send me money." Start off with a small amount, gets to a bigger amount. So it's the whole social engineering aspect. And it's actually quite sad. It was in the news 2 days ago, speaking of the Nigerian example. There's this thing called sextortion, right? So what ends up happening is someone pretends to be a young girl, young guy, whatever. They contact somebody over these chat apps, and they start sending pictures to each other, right? Nude pictures, etc. Catfish, exactly, catfishing. So there was a young athlete, I can't remember out of which state. He actually was a victim of that. And this is in the news from 2 days ago. Some of you may have heard about this. And he fell prey to that. So he sent his pictures out there. And then they said, "Hey, we're going to post these online unless you send me money through Bitcoin." And he actually, unfortunately, he ended up committing suicide over that. So that's when the government got involved, and they're extraditing the 2 Nigerians that were behind the scheme. You can look it up if you look up, young athlete Nigerians being extradited. It's a real thing. It's literally happening as soon as 2 days ago.
One thing I learned really, you never send the money, because once you send the first batch, it never stops, and you're hooked to that, and you don't know what to do, and you lose your head. Never ever send money.
Send the pictures, not the money.
Huh?
Send the pictures, not the money.
You raise a really good.
They keep sending them.
They keep sending it back.
Anyway,
Yes.
Go ahead, Sean.
No, wait. We have one more from the banking side.
Okay, perfect.
Let's hear it.
So absolutely, I think what I call them is romance scams. And actually, within operations, we have our transaction monitoring systems, and I see that very often, unfortunately. Fortunately, with the algorithms that we have and the ever-evolving technologies that we can rely on to implement, machine learning and everything that can help us with fraud detection, we're able to stop most of them. But unfortunately, some do get through. And it most of the time happens to be romance scams. So just wanted to add to that.
Thank you. Sean, go ahead.
All right, so you mentioned cybersecurity. I'm currently finalizing policy for the company I'm at. And there's no right or wrong, right? There's a matter of opinion. That's what I present to the board for approval. How would you suggest to assess a minimum premium? Because I got a proposal from Chubb and all those companies for.
I'm sorry, could you speak louder, please?
Sorry. How would you recommend you assess the minimum value of cyber insurance for your business? Not the max, the minimum.
So I get surveys almost every week. Our company does. My VP of Finance is here, and he works with me. So all our clients or different levels are getting these surveys and the requests for information from whether regulatory entities or commercial, entities, stating that what do you have, how do you run it, what's your security, and these surveys are not really that good yet, because the insurance companies and the regulatory bodies are just catching up as to what they should ask for. So to answer your question, the point is get multiple quotes. That's really what it comes down to. Make sure you have what's in at least the first one. Make sure you cover that, because they're all going to ask basically the same thing, which is exactly what we've been talking about. Everything. Yeah. With the backup, the front end, the antivirus, social engineering, how you handling it, are your doors locked, things like that. So it really comes down, it's across the board at this point. There isn't a real standard of what a company charges for cybersecurity, whether it's Chubb or anybody.
Yeah.
Right. So
may I answer this real quick?
Yeah.
So it comes to the cost of downtime, right? You figure out what's your data, what type of business are you in, and how much would it cost your business to be down for 1, 3, 5, 7 days. Once you figure that out, that should be your minimum coverage that you need. Otherwise, if not, then you're going to be left holding the bag there.
Yeah, and the other way to think about it is the scope of what you want to protect is going to define a premium, and what's going to lower the premium is the technology that you put in place to protect the event from happening, right? So those are the kind of two factors at play. The analogy is you buy car insurance, the value of the car is going to raise your premium, or your driving habits might raise your premium, but the more security and the more measures you have in place, like safety belts and those kind of things, are going to lower the premium. So that's the give and take. I know I'm not answering your question specifically, but just so for everyone else in the room, that's kind of the way to think about insurance when it comes to data.
But Naj hit it. Naj hit it.
Yeah, it
comes down to how quickly you want to gain access to your stuff. Number two, and what is the value of your stuff? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. That's what the cost is going to be.
And afterwards, I mean, that's a really good question. I'd like to talk to you more about how you're thinking about this, and
Go ahead, Alex.
Can we talk corporate espionage for a second? Intellectual property is one of the largest assets that the corporations have in their, net worth in some shape or form. The corporate espionage has been on the rise a lot. We've seen it in the oil and gas sector, decades ago in its primitive form. Like it cost our sector billions of dollars each year, right? And that's been getting worse. National state players, private corporations, you name it. What are some of the best practices that you guys are seeing these days as far as corporate players, taking in this direction? Because I know that it's becoming a large loss of revenue. Yes. If you can share some insights on what the players are doing, that'd be great.
Yeah. So corporate espionage. Someone in your environment is stealing information and providing it to either your competitors or someone else that could value from that information. So basic things like shutting down USB drives on all the laptops is something that you'll see at the banks, particularly. And then more sophisticated things. Email monitoring is someone that attempting to email large amounts of data outside of the environment. So you're ready to shut down a USB. Now you're protecting from email. All the other mechanisms. There's ports and protocols that can be shut down. Like FTP, SFTP, SSH protocols. So from a network perspective, so each mode, would need to be protected. But there are some use cases where you want people in your environment to be able to access a USB drive or send large amounts of information. So in those cases, background checks for those individuals, and ensuring that those individuals are in positions where those use cases are valid, and certifying them and only giving those people granted access, or some of the things that companies could do to protect from espionage.
Create policies and implement them. That's what it comes down to. Banking is big on this.
Right, and of course training. And that's always going to be important. I'll share a story. In one of the banks that I was working at, we had noticed that in the contact center we had a fraud ring. And I would walk around and I would hear picture taking happening, right? I would just hear like somebody taking a picture. And after several conversations with our IT department and security department, finally it was something that I was brought into where they've noticed that it was a couple of folks that had come into the training class, somehow infiltrated really the bank in that sense and started to take pictures of customer information. And they were already working with the FBI to bring them down. And so, it could happen at any time. And so when you work with your team members to really train them and help combat, not just security is for everybody is what I'm trying to say. If you're part of the company, then it's your responsibility to also make sure that you're aware of what your surroundings are. If you see something, say something, and work with your team to mitigate any of those losses.
Thank you, Natalia. One last question.
Yeah. So what do you do if someone's on the inside of an organization, right, and is implementing a cyber attack that way, right? A lot of it's coming from external with all this new technology, right? So what the fuck do you do if someone's on the inside fucking shit up, right? What do you do?
So there's, it really depends at what level they're fucking shit up. So what it comes down to is things like EDR and the things we spoke about. There's the ability, if something's happening to a single station, whether it's from the outside or internally, and it's against the policies, technology has the ability to isolate that incident immediately, stop it from doing any additional damage. But you have to have policies in place to identify and detect what's going on. Beyond that, the most important thing is make sure you have backups. So for example, a company fires somebody and they've been there forever and they have access to everything. So they're so pissed off that go get your stuff and get out, get your stuff from your office. Before he leaves, he hits a button and deletes everything off the server. Okay, he has access. He had the right to have access. What do? Well, you know what? You've got a backup. You bring it back. So there's so many problems that could be out there. It's all about being prepared and trying to anticipate what can go wrong, like in our life. A lot of technology mimics life in viruses and everything else.
And you can build all these systems and castles and padlocks to make everything secure. But how do you balance that with being user-friendly? Because you'll shed clients if it's too secure and too cumbersome.
Phenomenal question, because that's the challenge for IT and firms. How do we balance convenience with security? It's an ongoing thing. It's always trying to keep it equal. More security, less convenience. People hate 2FA. I don't like it. Every morning I go to my computer, or if I leave my desk for a half hour, I got to go in here and get a code and put it in. So great question, but there is no solution to it unless you guys have other solutions.
I think you want to balance the security, and you want to make sure that you're consistently practicing good data security hygiene is what I'm starting to call it that now, not just within your organization, but personal life. There's many things that you can do in an organization. It starts at onboarding a new customer. Only collect information that you need that's required, right, to authenticate your customer, but still make it a good experience by creating those apps that make it a lot easier for the different technologies to connect to actually authenticate your customer. And then you want, again, I think I spoke a lot about financial literacy and making sure that you are educating your customer, but a customer that is well educated is going to then prevent fraud and disputes coming back as losses to the organization. So I think a savvy customer is definitely key. And once you have them onboarded, you have their attention. So it's really, as a financial institution, your responsibility to help bring that information to the forefront and help them manage their accounts in a safe way. And so I think we also talked a lot about planning ahead, but in short, security is vital. And balancing that with convenience can be done in many different ways. through your environments, whatever demographics you may have. And I'm sure that you can find journey maps that can help you find those touch points that are really going to create a good experience, but also allow you to confirm the identity of your customer in a good way, right? Using technology.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you. All right, I'd like to close here. So I'd like to give 2 minutes to each panelist as closing remark. What would you like to say about this? And then we can close.
I wanted to close out with the thought of AI and utilizing that technology to really help us in this sector here. And really looking for technologies that are going to allow us to protect our customer base. So machine learning, anything that can help us continue to do this while we are working on our own processes internally or implementing softwares that help us. I think it's important to leverage what we have right in front of us right now. And I hope that you all get a moment in your own organizations or your own demographics to see if it's something that you can use to help combat fraud.
Thank you, Natalia.
Yeah, from my perspective, we talked about a lot of different stuff. So to distill it down and to crystallize into what are the key takeaways. Number one, you've got to start with a defense in depth strategy. If there's anything you remember, it's that. What is it? What is a defense in depth strategy? It's prevention, it's training, and it's the ability to recover your backups. And then after you implement that, test it. Because just like Barry was saying, the war games, I've seen it happen over and over. Companies, large companies have these disaster recovery policies in place. They have their backups in place. Just look at Colonial Pipeline. Does anybody remember the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack? They had the best backup in place. They had security policies in place. They had incident response policies. But you know what they did? Or you know what they didn't do? They didn't test them. So that's the key.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, if all of this is very complicated, find a trusted provider. There's businesses. Barry has a business that's in this field that is focused on cybersecurity, focused on backup, continuity, disaster recovery, endpoint detection. So I have this is like a way. There's a whole industry out there to protect you. So find someone. And there's also companies that service particular verticals. So if you're in a particular vertical, whether it's state and local education, government, if it's finance, if it's medical, those kind of companies are called managed service providers. They're going to really understand what the regulatory requirements and provide software and controls for those particular environments.
Thank you.
So I have 3 quick things, and you picked one of them. Find an expert. You don't have to learn all this, as you do in every aspect of your life. Also in every aspect of your life, you're always told throughout your life, plan for your retirement, plan for everything. With IT security, you need to plan. It's a way of life. I mean, it's part of your life. You have to. And finally, what this is all about, and you've heard a lot of different areas of security, how do they all go together? What did most of our mothers say, or our fathers, when we went out when it was really cold? Layer. Put on layers. Security is about layering. That's really what it's about. And the more layers you put, hopefully the more protection you have. And it really depends on the scenario. So layering is very important, but most importantly, you don't do brain surgery on yourself because somebody told you to do it. You get an expert. So hopefully you've all learned a lot, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.